Hello everybody, I'm Mr. An from Korea. Today's lecture is Parmenides, philosophy of being, what is and what is not. Parmenides is one of the most important philosophers in Western philosophy. To understand his philosophical thought is not easy, because no one before him ever thought of the being itself. He topicalized for the first time the problem of a being. He is the founder of a philosophy of a being, that is ontology. On this basis, Parmenides could set up the possibility of the knowledge, that is, knowledge as the identity of a subject and object. Being is a thought. Therefore, his thought is above all important. Greek philosophy had existed before Parmenides. However, previous thinkers of Greek philosophy were not sure of the possibility of the knowledge. The problem of a possibility of objective knowledge first occurred in the 5th century before Christ in Greece. The sophists attacked the validity of knowledge, including philosophy. They denied the identity of object and subject, being and thought. Then hitherto believed knowledge was fundamentally challenged, refuted, and ignored by a lot of sophists. They were suspicious of the possibility of knowledge, that is, universal knowledge, especially that of moral and value. According to the sophist, everyone has his own knowledge, that is, knowledge is relative to the individuals. All looks yellow to the jaundiced eye. Therefore, Socrates seemed to confess that he knew nothing. Socrates said, the only true wisdom consists in knowing that you know nothing. Even if in Plato's dialogue of Parmenides, Socrates knew about the natural philosophy in his time. Nature means Socrates' ignorance. I know only that I do not know. Socrates' ignorance seemed to reflect the general skeptical, relativistic atmosphere at that time, because he allegedly knew about the natural philosophy. Parmenides' theory of being could defend philosophical scientific knowledge against relativism, skepticism, and agnosticism about the truth as objective knowledge at that time. A great sophist, Gorgias, for example, established his nihilistic argument as a trilemma. First, nothing exists. Second, even if existence exists, it cannot be known. Third, even if it could be known, it cannot be communicated. As will be later discussed, the position of Parmenides with regard to being, knowledge, and communication is a direct opposition to that of Gorgias. Parmenides says, in opposition to Gorgias, nothing is impossible. It is absurd for one to think about nothing, only being or something, or that which exists is meaningful. As will be soon declared, it is because being does not have a negation. This picture is Gorgias. Therefore, Plato and Aristotle came to use the argument on being from the standpoint of Parmenides. Parmenides' thinking can be therefore sufficiently understood from the perspective of Plato and especially Aristotle. As opposed to the sophist, Plato and Aristotle seek the possibility of the public universal knowledge through Parmenides. As a result, Aristotle could perform the system of science or philosophy. However, it is not easy to interpret consistently Parmenides' thought in his writings. Therefore, I limit my study on Parmenides to some important phrases of his philosophical poem. Parmenides, the great thinker of being. One path only is left for us to speak of, namely that it is. In this path are many tokens that what is uncreated and indestructible, for it is complete, immovable, and without end, nor was it ever, nor will it be. Delivered Parmenides writing in fractions. Parmenides tried to capture the essence of reality through the analysis of structure of being or what is. Being or what is does not have here any special determinate meaning, but only general meaning of being. In this relation, the concept of the being refers to the most common notion of being. Parmenides found above all the logical structure of being. Being cannot be denied. The core of Parmenides' thought is that being or what is cannot be denied, negated. Therefore, non-being or what is not is a force, impossible. It is absurd for one to think and say about non-being or what is not. This is the essence of his argument on being. And we can think, say, and learn only being or what is. Therefore, being or what is objective and intelligible. Knowledge of being is valid. From this perspective, his thought is quite simple, as will be revealed later on. Not all negation belong to the subjective part of the cognition. Therefore, Parmenides was able to assert the truth of being and the fellowship of non-being or nothing. It was the being concept of the Parmenides that served as the basis for the formation of the Plato's idea theory. On top of that, Aristotle's philosophy too was founded on the concept of being of Parmenides. This problem I will debate later again. The science in the West owes Parmenides absolutely. Without him, no science at all. More closely to say, the possibility of the science or scientific recognition was due to the teaching of Parmenides on being. The basis of Western philosophy is ontology or metaphysics, but before Plato and Aristotle, it was Parmenides who laid the foundation of the ontology and metaphysics through the analysis of being. On the famous proposition of Parmenides is as follows. The first, namely, that is, and that it is impossible for it not to be, is the way of conviction, for truth is its companion. The other, namely, that it is not, and that it must needs not be, that I tell thee is the past, that none can learn of at all. For thou cannot know what is not. That is impossible, nor utter it, for it is the same thing that can be thought and that can be. Text of Parmenides. According to Parmenides, what is, what is not, and what is cannot be exchanged with what is not. It seems to be very natural. Therefore, it seems to be tautology in the form of A is A. However, the content of it is goes beyond the tautology. In my opinion, Aristotle's law of identity or tautology of A equals A stem from it is or what is of Parmenides. The law of identity, A is A. Everything is the same as itself. The implication of it is as follows. In the area of being or what is, there is no denying of existence. Denying or negation consists not in things themselves, but in the mind, in subjective thinking. Therefore, Parmenides said that it is not or what is not is mistaken. They cannot be true. There is no denying of a being, existence. Negation or denial belong to the logic as the instrument of human knowledge. Aristotle called his logic as an organon, that is instrument. In the elementary step of metaphysics and logic, Parmenides could not distinguish between the truth of being and that of logic, especially that of judgment. Later, Aristotle could knew the function of affirmation denial to solve the difficulty of what is not by Parmenides. The point is that the denial or negation doesn't be ascribed to the being, but to the assertion as a combination of two things, beings or two things. That is, negation is a kind of a subjective function of a human mind. This is Aristotle's logic. Affirmation and denial in Aristotle's De Interpretatione. In the De Interpretatione, Aristotle holds that affirmation and denial constitute two different kinds of assertion or assertive sentence. He conceptualized the distinction in terms of a combination and separation or division. In his view, affirming that Socrates is white, for example, requires combining being white with Socrates, whereas denying that he is white requires separating being white from him. From this perspective, there is no formation or negation in the being or things. This is a secret of Parmenides' enigmatic philosophical expression. What is not, what is not, what is. Being of Parmenides refers to term in Aristotle's logic. Thus, can we say that the negation is not applied to term but to a judgment or proposition in Aristotle's logic? This man is Aristotle, a founder of logic and metaphysics. He solved the difficulty in the problem of being and non-being in Parmenides through the logic. This is my point. But the insufficient momentum he thought that is an absence of instrumental logical consideration caused philosophy to go a long and winding way of persistent struggle through Plato and Aristotle. In short, Parmenides first of all saw the being as such or being qua being, but he didn't see the other element of the human cognition, that is language, assertion. For reason of his shortage of linguistic, logical level, Parmenides embarrassed us with his enigmatic expression. Although human recognition depends on being or what is, it requires more, that is language and assertion or homology. Next theme, identity of being and thought. Here we should discuss the problem of identity of being and the thought or that of object subject, as it was asserted by Parmenides. The identity or unity of being and the thought is not a mystic concept, but a simple matter of fact that is that we can understand something. That is, when we understand simple mathematical case, 2 plus 2 equals 4, the identity of being and the thought occurs. In other words, identity of being and the thought means our understanding, cognition, knowledge. A curious thing about identity and of being and knowledge is that it consists only in the realm of universal cognition. Like Parmenides argues, to the realm of the sensible individual things, the identity of being and the thought or knowledge does not be applied. As Hegel said in his human knowledge of spirit, the truth of the sensible certainty. For example, now is the November 14th, is soon falsified. Therefore, the truth or unity of being and the thought remains in the universal area. This argument would Parmenides asserted when he said that only being can be thought, spoken, and learned. Human knowledge consists only in the level of the universal. Thinking and speaking are valid only in the universal area. In other words, both being and the knowledge of it are public and intelligible. Hegel, too, like other philosophers, rejected effectively the possibility of individual sensible cognition is a masterwork, pure knowledge of spirit. Next theme, denial of becoming change. As the first finder of being, qua being, Parmenides proceeds to the denial of change and becoming. Change and becoming involves the moment of negation. Being cannot comes from non-being, what is not, and being cannot also turn into non-being. Therefore, change, becoming is impossible. In the authentic sense, birth and death are also impossible, although they are real in daily life. Here comes the difference between philosophy and the common sense. Philosophy makes the world deteriorate to absurdity. Because of his difference, philosophy is difficult to understand, and many people laugh at Parmenides when he said, what is not, is not. The world of birth and death is not possible. As will be later mentioned, like Parmenides, Buddhism also regards this world of change and becoming as an imagination, a fantasy, a phenomenon. As opposed to the world of change, being is declared as forever, eternal. Closely said, being is timeless. However, Parmenides goes over the timeless being as the logical structure of being to a substantiate being. That is, he makes one being from the general structure of being. Being is like a ball. Since then, it has a furthest limit. It is complete on every side, like the mass of rounded sphere, equally poised from the center in every direction. The thought of being as the mass of the rounded sphere collides with the being as being or what is. From this point of view, is Parmenides' system of being somewhat inconsistent and deficient. Okay, this is the end of the lecture. Thank you very much for your listening and attention. See you later.